Hi, I'm here to talk to you about flood insurance and some forms that we're making, or some changes we're making to zipForms in order to deal with the flood insurance question. I'm sure all of you know at this point that there are changes both to the flood maps, and those changes are ongoing, and some towns are actually trying to make further changes to their flood maps. There's also some change happening to the flood insurance premium program. And those specific changes and how they work and how they affect primary residences and second homes and commercial homes, and what the increases will be and what the fees are going to be, all of that is going to be detailed on the website mainrealtors.com, and we will have links to all of the National Association of Realtors information about those various changes. So this is not designed to tell you what the changes are to the flood insurance premiums or to the flood insurance maps, and that information is available on the website. What we're trying to do for you is equip you, both as a seller's agent and as a buyer's agent, to come up with the right information to protect your client as well as yourselves and your agency. So from a seller agent point of view, the first change that you will see is to the seller property disclosure form. And on the last page of that form, which is page 3, in the section 5 general information, about an inch and a half down, you will see after the veterans homestead exemption blind working waterfront question is a new question, and the question is this: is this house currently covered by a flood insurance policy? Yes, no, or unknown. And you will notice that we have not asked you to ask your seller, is this property in a flood zone? Because many sellers do not know the answer to that question and yet try to answer it. And if they're in a shoreland zone, they might mistakenly put down that they're in a flood zone when they're not. But what they do know is whether or not they have a current flood insurance policy. So yes, no, unknown, because we put unknown with virtually every question in the form. But there's a place where they can disclose to a potential buyer, we do have a flood insurance policy or we do not. So that, from a seller's agent point of view, is where we think you should be with your client. From a buyer's agent point of view, and I believe that this whole flood insurance issue is much more important for buyers and buyer agents than it is for seller agents. There would be a place that it would be a clue to your buyer client. If it's yes, then they certainly want to investigate what they need to do about getting a policy and what the expense is going to be to them for a policy. Because if this seller had to get one, chances are if they finance, they will need to get one as well. If the question is answered no, it may just mean that the seller has owned the property for a very long time, or that they have no mortgage on it, and therefore we're not required to put flood insurance on the policy, on the property. So the next place for a buyer's agent to think about this, the first place that their buyer client is going to run into something that we're changing in zipForms, is the residential property transaction booklet. And the National Association of Realtors has provided us with a Q&A about flood insurance and the changes to the premiums. Again, not detailing what those changes are, but just the things that a buyer needs to think about. And that's being added to the residential property transaction booklet. That will be new question 44, so you should point that out to your buyer client. The next place that a buyer would run into this would be when they get the property disclosure, as we just talked about. The third place they would run into the issue would be in paragraph 12, which is the due diligence investigations paragraph. And there has been for quite some time a flood zone checkoff, so that there would be a place where they could say they need 10 days or however long period of time for them to satisfy themselves whether or not the property is in a flood zone. And then if there's any question that it is in a flood zone, not waiting for that period of time to go by for an investigation, but maybe because the seller has checked off, yes, I have flood insurance now, or maybe because the buyer's agent believes that it might be in a flood zone, we're adding to your clause library a paragraph about flood insurance. It's similar to the regular homeowner's insurance paragraph that's there now. The buyer would add that to their offer in paragraph 26, and it would give them blank days to be filled out as part of the offer to satisfy themselves that they can get a satisfactory flood insurance policy, allows them, if they can't within that time frame, to void the contract, and their earnest money would be able to be returned to them once the normal 5-day notice has been given. So those are the pieces that you will see new about flood insurance in zipForms. Please call the hotline if you have any questions. Thank you.